All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping here for another episode of Making Sense, and Ryan Babenzien is joining the pod. Ryan, how we doing?
I'm good. Good to see you, Drew.
Joining us from, which I didn't know this, but tropical London, because they have palm trees there, I guess. Is that right? So Ryan just moved to London. Ryan, how long you been in London?
We moved here in mid-August. I wouldn't call it tropical, but there are plenty of palm trees
You
here,
said
which
palm
is
trees, so
is
I'm taking that all the
yeah,
way
yeah.
here,
There's palm
tropical.
trees,
Yeah.
man. Pull up the shorts.
Ryan, so I've known Ryan for I guess probably like over a year now, honestly. Ryan is an investor in my company. Ryan's a friend, he's a customer. And I was super excited when he decided to join the pod because as if you're in D2C or consumer or beauty sort of broadly, you've heard of Jolie skin by now. Probably seen Ryan in whatever myriad of press posts they've put you in at this point. Um, and Ryan likes to practice radical transparency. So I think we're gonna get into a little bit of that stuff. If you followed me at all, you saw that I did the Jolie breakdown, which is like my only real U.S. private company breakdown, which I think is my best performing Substack post of all time. Except
Is
for
that
me,
right?
except for maybe the Once Upon a Farm S1 breakdown. For some reason, that one went pretty good too. But yeah, I know people love the Jolie breakdown. So I want to start though just with getting to know you a little bit better for the audience. Like, tell us a bit about yourself, your experience, and Jolie broadly.
Yeah. Well, prior to Jolie, I had a career in marketing for the most part. Um, Early career was Hollywood. Then I shifted into marketing, went from Puma to K-Swiss, and then started Greats, which was really the first B2C footwear brand in the world. And it was sort of at the tail end of the D2C 1.0, where you can put D2C on anything and raise a bunch of capital and
Yeah,
start
yeah.
a company.
Which is
I
when?
think we all that was 2014.
Okay.
So yeah, I think we all learned the lesson. D2C is a distribution channel. It's not a business model. And for, all the reasons that we all know.
Mm,
And it's a good distribution channel, but it's not a model that would sort of warrant what was happening at that time in terms of fundraising and
yeah.
valuations and all those things.
Yeah, yeah.
But in building that company and then ultimately, selling it to Steve Madden, there was a lot of lessons of what makes D2C great and what makes D2C not great. Um, and I wanted to really apply those lessons um, into something else, and
Yeah.
and that is how sort of ultimately where Jolie was born, and it was in a shower, literally, where I had developed this framework that I thought if I can create a product that focuses on your vanity and your health and your wellness, that is a one size fits all type thing
Hmm.
that is used habitually because consumer behavior is very hard to shift. But if you did something naturally every single day and it fit every household and it focused on your beauty, I thought that would like be a great product to launch.
Yeah.
Lo and behold, I found out that water was contaminating our skin and our hair. Plumbing pipe is one size; it's a standard plumbing size, and I'm going to create a beauty wellness company that filters your shower water. In the shower, that was sort of the ideation of where Jolie
Yeah,
began.
yeah.
So that is the short version of Ryan on how we got here.
Amazing, amazing. Okay, so I wanna rewind before we talk so much about Jolie. I think in many ways like Jolie's like kind of like the perfect business model, at least for like the category and the distribution that you're pursuing. So I want to like back up into the greats story just a little bit and talk about like what did you learn sort of from the I can kind of hear it in your tonality, but like you clearly learned like some things from greats that sort of transferred into what you thought about in terms of starting Jolie. But take us like a little bit through the greats story. So like you said, started in 2014. Obviously sold to well, maybe not obviously, but sold it to Steve Madden, and then like how did that all go? I guess I have to ask at least a little bit about the M&A process too. But like how did you get started with greats? How long were you running it? How big did it get? Et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. So when we sold, it was about a $20 million revenue business. We sold in 2019, so 5 years in.
Okay.
We didn't raise the right amount of money. Actually, we raised the right amount of money in the wrong sequence. And I was still a believer then, like, even though there was all this money available for D2C,
Hmm.
I didn't actually raise that much.
How much do you
So
raise?
I raised I raised $2 million, then $2 million, and then $8 million.
Okay.
And that was the wrong sequence of capital raising.
Like
Because
you
what
should
I
have done it
should have done,
backwards.
I should have just raised $8 million. And that would have changed a lot of our pain points because for this is very specific for grades. And this was the right problem to have. We had so much demand, we didn't we were selling out of things all the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like to the point of, I was losing millions of dollars a year in revenue from year 1, 2, and
Mhm.
3. Most of that was due to being undercapitalized because we didn't really have enough capital to sort of do what we should have been doing. We didn't have enough data or belief that make sure you're never out of stock in white and black. Like those were like those were and continue to be the
Oh, I
number one
see.
sellers. And
Yeah, yeah.
right. So we were just distracted with all of the things that you can imagine a footwear guy would be distracted with. However, had we raised the right amount of capital first, I think the outcome would actually been better, right? Like we
Yeah,
would
yeah.
have built a bigger business. Um, I also didn't believe in pre-selling. So
Why
because
not?
we were out of stock, we were just letting because again, huge lesson. I was like, man, nobody wants to wait for a pair of sneakers. They
Yeah,
just
yeah.
sort of want them. And I just felt it was a bad customer experience. I took that lesson, which was wrong. I was wrong about that. It's not like we could pre-sale for a year, but like, 6 weeks. If we're like, hey, this stuff's on a boat, it's going to be here, buy it now, and you'll get it in 6 weeks.
Uh-huh.
People would have waited for that. What we wound up doing with Jolie, we had the same problem in the very beginning. We sold through things so fast, and we were like short from the time it was getting on the water to like when it was going to land. We were going to have like 3 or 4 weeks of no inventory. We just said pre-order, like
Yeah, yeah.
flip the switch. Revenue kept on rolling and people waited. It was coming out of COVID, so people were also used to waiting for almost everything. So
Yeah.
there was sort of a change in expectation from a D2C customer base. But we just kept on rolling. So the point, that was a huge, I shouldn't say huge, certainly a lesson that I had not done it with greats. I might not have done it at Jolie.
So Greats gets to 20 million in 5 years in 2019. And then you guys decide that you want to sell the business or you're approached by Steve Madden. Tell us a little bit about how
We
like yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to get out of the business. I
Okay.
just didn't want to do it anymore. I had sort of lost the passion. Um, and Steve Madden, the man, and the company, and Ed, the CEO, we had sort of had an open dialogue for probably a year and a half.
Uh,
And I just called him one day. I said, "Hey man, I'm ready to sell this thing. You want to
yeah.
buy it?"
You want to take it
It
off
was
my hands?
literally like that sort of simple. Um, and thankfully they said yes.
Um,
I had already had the idea for Jolie, by the way. That was a big part of why I
oh,
just
you were
needed
like,
to
this is
move
just gonna be way
on.
better. Yeah, yeah.
I just was so not like I had thought about it, developed it to the point where I'm like, I need to build this. I need to go build
Yeah.
this. And I would have left Grace if whether somebody bought it or not. Like that's where we were, or that's where I was in sort of my life span of where I was going to stay with grades.
Did you have co-founders at Greats?
No,
No. Okay, so it's just you.
I did have a co-founder early on, but he sort of dropped out sort of,
Okay.
within months. So
Um,
technically, no,
and do you talk publicly about the purchase price of that acquisition?
I do not.
Okay. Um,
And
so
and they're a public company, and like I don't even know if I'm legally allowed to say it. So I'm gonna
okay.
take the fifth.
Yeah, 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 fair enough. So okay, so you're like basically like I'm done with this. I've got a way better idea. Steve, buy my company. He buys it. Was the so it sounds like you guys were like kind of like friends at that point. I get or not maybe not friends, but
Yeah,
like you were
I don't know if
friendly.
I'd call us friends, but we certainly had a relationship for sure.
And was the like how long did that whole process take? Like was it like you sold it off in like 3 months, 6 months, a year,
It was really fast.
really
It
fast?
was very fast. It was we like start to finish 90-day close.
Oh wow, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. I mean, the
Right.
thing about Steve Madden is they actually as a big public company, they move like a very small way.
Yeah.
Like once they're ready to do something, they go.
I'm trying to think like
So
what's their like market cap right now? I
I
don't
think it's
even.
like 2 billion.
Oh wow, that's pretty good.
Um,
Yeah, 2.5.
but again, I do think that the relationship that we had for probably
Yeah.
closer to 2 years, that accelerated that idea, right? They didn't need to get to know the business, they didn't need to get to know me, they didn't need to get to know the opportunity.
Mhm.
We had sort of discussed those things in random moments over time.
Yeah.
So they were really familiar with the business. And Steve Madden wanted to add a men's business into their business, which is mostly women. So
Oh, so
it made
was that the
sense.
first men's line of Steve Madden?
It wasn't the first, but it was
But a good
clearly,
one. Yeah. Yeah.
like we were a mostly men's company. They were a mostly women's company. They want to
Got it.
round out their portfolio. That just made sense. So
Okay, and then so okay, great. So we sell greats in 2019. The Jolie started in 2020 or 2021. I should know that.
January 22 was our
Oh,
first
January 22.
full month in operate at full month like live. So we had
Okay.
built it over that year.
Okay.
So I sold in 19, stayed on for a year. Uh, October 20, started working on Jolie October 20, and then launched. Technically, we launched December of 21,
Okay.
like right before Christmas, but we had like 10 days
And like right at
live.
the right at the top of like the stock market bubble.
Yeah, exactly.
um
Which we didn't even care or think
well yeah,
about. We
because
just wanted to
despite
get
that,
going.
clearly, I mean, you scaled I've obviously studied it and written it, so I should know the numbers off the top of my head, but I don't. But like you got to like what, like 20 million in the first like 2 years or something like that?
Yeah, we did 4 million in the first year and 28 million in the second year.
Okay, so, like, by year 2, Jolie is already basically bigger than Greats was by the time you sold it 5 years in.
That's why I left.
So you kinda called the shot. Yeah, yeah, you called your shot there. Which is pretty incredible. And, you mentioned earlier that, like, with Greats, you raised money the right amount of money in the wrong sequence. But I don't believe that you really raised money, at least at the beginning, of Jolie, right? You guys bootstrapped.
We haven't raised money forever. I
Yeah.
mean, we seeded the business with a couple of $1 million. So
Okay.
I want to be like clear, like it's not zero.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But we have not done a price round. We didn't raise venture money. It was a friends and family round. First, it was self-funded, and then it was a friends and
Yeah.
family round. Um, and that's all the money we've ever raised.
And do you think, like, would you change that if you could go back, or is that like kind of like a cute
No.
no? So you don't feel like you undercapitalized though, because before you said you felt like you undercapitalized, so you were able
Well,
to.
and I did, and footwear is a very different business with a
Okay.
very different, cash need, and trend cycles. Like it's just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
different capital need business. Not that Jolie doesn't need capital, but we don't need that kind of capital,
yeah, yeah.
and we have a recurring revenue business. So that is a very different, being able to get profitable in month 5 or 6 is very unique for any business,
Mhm.
and that's essentially what we did, right? We were able to sort of self-fund the business on a recurring revenue model that is, as you've analyzed, maybe one of the best, if not the best in the market.
It's probably the best I've ever seen, and we'll get there in a second. But like, what's the biggest then difference in like these two business models, like footwear versus call it beauty? Like, is it just the lead times? Like how long was the lead time? Like 9 months to make some shoes, or is it just like the ability to generate
N
profits on a unit economic basis quickly, or like what is
it
like the biggest difference?
No, well, making the lead time wasn't the biggest difference. I think, for the recurring revenue is a completely different animal. When you have a
Yeah,
repeat business basis or a recurring revenue, those are different. They're not the same. When somebody comes back to buy a second pair of greats, 10 months, 12 months, 14 months, that's a very different type of customer than one that's getting billed quarterly and never
mhm,
leaving, right? Those are two different models, and people need to appreciate that. Um, the way we built our margin profile is different and better, right? Like we had a great margin profile at Grapes. We have a much better one at Jolie.
mhm,
And then, these are the things you sort of understand. You come from this side of the business. So you sort of realize like margin is critical,
yeah,
repeat revenue is critical, and how do you get as profitable as how do you get profitable fast? That was the mission, right? So the goal for Jolie was, let's raise the right amount of money that we need to get going and try to get this business as profitable as we can within a year. That was our goal.
Yeah.
We did it in half that time. Biggest difference though is, I think, is recurring revenue.
Yeah, and I'll give you a bit of credit too, because I think end of 2021, beginning of 2022, we probably weren't quite there as an industry. Just like I think we're there now in terms of like everybody knows you should get profitable as quickly as possible, but like a lot of people will get stuck in the trap of like, oh, I'm in year one, I'll, at some point I'll be profitable, and they just kind of kick that can down the road forever, and then eventually they like can't sustain the business model. So I do think that's like fair. That was fairly forward looking, and a lot of people would just be concerned with growth. But breaking that down, right? So like let's like say that like the audience here is like listening, they're operators. So you mentioned there's basically like two businesses at Jolie, like the sort of customer acquisition, which is like you're selling the shower head, and then the recurring element, which is the filter. And you mentioned obviously having high margin and recurring revenue. Like that's how you get profitable quickly, obviously, because you're just stacking gross profit from a repeat customer perspective. Um, so, and I don't know that I broke this down in my analysis, but like what are the margin differences of the shower head versus like the actual recurring filter sales, and like how do you think about the, I guess, basically contribution across each of those business lines? Like, are you willing to lose money on the shower head and then get paid back on the filters, or how has that evolution changed over time, and like how did that guide you in terms of getting the business profitable quickly?
So I'm going to answer that in reverse order. No, we're not willing to lose money on the first purchase,
Okay.
which is unique, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
most brands that have the predictability of our recurring revenue stream after or before in January. So
They
after
would
this
pile in
amount of
CAC. Yeah,
they
yeah.
would just say, "F it," like scale, lose money and wait for the
Yeah,
profit
yeah.
to come. Okay. And there is a world where we may do that, but we just, again, having no institutional capital and no board to
Mhm.
speak of, and being, the majority owner by, like, almost like in a way that is unique. Our cap table is very different than almost every cap table you've ever seen. That means it's ours. So we
Yeah, yeah.
just operate it differently. Um, the margin, there are two different price points, right? So like a filter head is obviously much more than a filter itself, but on a percentage basis, they're almost identical in terms of margin.
Okay.
That's unique about this hardware part, because most hardware businesses, if you were to comp us to I would only use this from a hardware level. The shower head industry has like a 40-point margin, and we
Okay.
have something that's double that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So that's unique. Now we could give it away, frankly. We could give it away and just
A lot of
wait
people do or will.
and
Yeah.
a lot of people do. We just felt like, let's just try and make money on the first purchase, and we continue to operate that way.
And you probably would have a harder time doing that if you weren't like, where do you sit in terms of like market seg, like, is it like a prestige technically?
We're the premium priced in the filtering shower market. We're also
Okay.
the number one by, magnitude. So, and we're the creator of this space where a filtering shower is a beauty wellness tool. We've built that position.
Mhm.
We don't comp ourselves to shower heads though, right? Because the shower head costs $30.
That's what I'm
You can get a shower
saying.
head for 30, you can get a shower head for $30 or $3,000, right? There are very expensive shower heads.
Right.
We don't really comp ourselves to a shower head. We're a beauty wellness tool. So what we comp ourselves to is, how much of your wallet a year are you spending
Right.
on products and services for your skin and your hair, because we sit in that part of your wallet. The average female consumer in America spends about $3,000 a year on products and services related to skin and hair,
That's the
and we
average.
cost $150 a year roughly, right? So if you look at it through that lens, we offer tremendous value into your skin and hair and often health regimen.
Right, but at the end of the day, like your AOV, like your first purchase AOV is very, very high. Like, you
Well,
know,
it's a just call it 150. It's not exactly 150, but let's just
well,
call it
that's what I'm
that.
saying. But even like so for even for beauty, like for beauty, like
Right, like, what is it? Yeah, you'd be shocked, dude. A woman goes into Ulta, they go into Sephora, they go into beauty store, they're gonna spend $150 on shampoo, conditioner, and and a lotion.
I
So
know,
they're buying 3 things, right? But
right?
those are disposable. They might not even use them all the way
Yeah,
because they're off to the next trend, and right? So we you know, I think I know where you're going with this, but we look at us as the sort of Switzerland of beauty wellness, where we sort of we call ourselves step zero. It doesn't really matter how much you spend or what brands you're using, whether you're using drugstore brands or luxury brands. If you're not filtering your shower water, you're sort of wasting that investment in those products.
yeah, yeah. I think where I'm going is like I don't know that there's a ton of categories or like consumers that you could address where this is true. You know what I mean? Like, did you consider like the female beauty focused consumer when you were like thinking about this business model? Because like if you took this and you did it for air filters for dudes, like it might you might have like a less of like an elasticity on pricing. Do you know what I mean?
Well, I maybe if you could tell dudes that they're gonna gain 3% of muscle mass by having an air filter, then it's positioned differently. Now that's obviously not true, right? But
Yeah, yeah.
if it did provide some other value other than the one,
I've seen worse claims, by the
like,
way.
yeah, but like that's where Jolie was is unique. We're actually providing all this benefit in a behavior that you're doing every day, but you don't have to do anything different.
Right.
So you're going to get all these skin hair benefits that are now clinically proven and trial tested. And th- rather than be prescriptive about what you're buying to try to solve your frizzy hair or lessen your hair shedding or help your eczema or improve your acne, all of things that Jolie helps with, that our investment is actually cheaper to get those results than trying to buy
Mhm.
all these things to get
I
those
see.
results.
I see what you mean. I see what you mean. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting. And I think like the other component that I wanted to dive into because I remember when I was like doing this breakdown, I basically took like the broader Iris personal care, like sort of like gross retention numbers, and I put it in a chart. These average subscriber cohort retention for Jolie over the course of like 3 years is something like 15x higher than like the median, basically call it, for like the broader like our data. And I have a beauty background, so we're pretty over indexed, just on like personal care and beauty in general. Probably have like 40 brands or so, in that category. So like, did you know from the beginning that the retention was going to be so strong, or were you surprised by this? And like, how did you lean into it over time? And like, when did you identify that this was like a key lever for you guys? Because I mean, to me, this is the hallmark of the Jolie business.
It is. It has become our sort of, urban legend.
Yeah,
Well, I believe that we would have great retention for a handful of reasons, and most of all, like the like what it did for you. Like, there's
Mhm.
people are going to put this in, they're going to see the results, they're going to keep it. Like that
Yeah,
was the sort of basic logic. We did not think it would be as good as it. I mean, it turned out to be. As far as we can tell, it's beyond beauty at this point. I think we have the best retention in consumable. We recently had, somebody run a comp with data. I can't really disclose how, but they comped us
yeah.
to Coterie diapers, Groons, AG1, Nutrafol, and a couple of other brands. And I posted this on my LinkedIn.
I
I
saw.
actually
Yeah.
posted those charts. We have better retention than every one of those brands, and those are sort of the best in the world. Like consumable product retention, best in the world, right? They're considered the
Yeah.
best.
I mean, think about
We have
Coterie, like
better.
baby diapers. Like, dude, you
No,
just
dude, it's yeah, and I used like our son had Coterie, so
yeah,
I
like
was
you
like,
would never cancel that. Well,
when
until they
I
stop
got
pooping
that,
again.
I was sort of like, I can't believe we have beaten Coterie in like it was a 24-month window, by the way.
Okay.
A 24-month retention. I'm just sort of shocked because after 24 months, coder's retention sort of falls off a cliff because at 2, you change your you're somewhere around then, and then they move
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
So like, but that's their business. So like, that's
right.
not a negative.
There's a lot of
That's
babies every
just
year.
right. So yeah, we have great retention.
And how quickly did that become apparent to you? So like you launch again beginning of
Well, you
20.
sort of have to wait, you know, you sort of
That's what
have
I'm
to
saying.
wait.
Yeah, yeah. Because like
To,
if you're launching and it's
yeah.
like, how do you know how much you're willing to spend? Well, I guess because you want to be first order profitable.
Well,
So you're,
I mean, these are great topics, right? Of what you like. We didn't spend anything on paid media for the first 9 months.
oh, you didn't,
No, not a
and you
dollar.
did 4 million in sales without spending in 9 months.
Yeah,
How is that possible?
yeah. Word of mouth.
Word of
We
mouth.
we
Wow.
we we built a community and got people using Jolie's in a way that would make most people uncomfortable. Because we knew that, and still know this today, that if you can get somebody to be an advocate and talk about your brand, you're just going to create value. You might not be able to
Yeah,
measure it. It's not going to show up in your attribution model, but it's going to drive awareness for your business. And that was our focus. So cohort 1, 90 days in, boom, like there's our
yeah,
first
yeah.
metric.
Right.
Like we had like a 99% keep rate. Like nobody canceled.
Yeah.
Stack 6 months in, basically the same thing. Like it was flat. Like so the first year, now we have a year of data. We're like, oh my God,
We're like,
we were
yeah.
so wrong in the right way. Like we were, because we modeled, retention very differently. And now we're, before in January, and the curve has changed, but the position as the best retention in the market is not.
Okay, I'm glad that we sort of like established like the fundamental components of Jolie. Because I always think about like businesses and markets as like imagine like and maybe this is stupid and I need to work on like a new analogy, but like if you had like a room full of like dollar bills that were just like flying around, and you were like allowed to build like you could build a bucket. And the way that you build the bucket is determines how many dollar bills you can like wave it around and like catch in the market. And so the first question is like, how do you build a bucket that can catch a lot of dollars? So clearly, there's a couple different components there. Recurring revenue and high margin are two great places to start. I don't even know if there's anything else, honestly. But then the second question becomes how big is this room of dollar bills, right? Like if I caught all the dollar bills, how many dollar bills would I actually have caught? And so something that you said earlier that's interesting is like you don't really think of it as like a shower head, right? Like we don't comp ourselves as shower heads. So like where my mind go, and you talk about share of wallet from women, which is like effectively unlimited in many ways for this category. So like how do you and like you haven't raised money, so maybe you don't have to think about this too much. But like how are you sort of like mentally underwriting the potential of the business? Because it's very clear, I think, that step one is like pretty well set in terms of like this is a very effective business model. And now it's just like where do we want to play in this whole thing?
So the way we look at the market is very simple. It's household based.
Okay.
There's 260 million residential showers in the US. So of all the homes, there's 260 million house like shower heads in those
Just in
homes.
just in houses though, like what about like gyms and
Just in houses. Doesn't include
not like
gyms, doesn't
no.
include universities, doesn't include hospitality,
Oh.
hotels.
Do you not think of
But
those as markets for you?
I do think those are tremendous markets, but let's
Okay.
just focus on
Sure,
the
sure,
one
sure,
I
sure.
just mentioned because we're consumer facing at this point. That's the size of the market. That's the total addressable market in North America alone. If you add the world, it turns into billions, right? And then we can back down from there. We can just say, okay, cool. We want to focus on household income of X or more. That's going to
It
bring us down to 50 million households or 50 million shower heads that we could ultimately replace. And this is critical. I believe that ultimately everybody will have a filtering shower in their house. I think that's inevitable. It may or may not be a Jolie. There'll be other brands
Yeah.
in the market that will compete. There'll be more than one for sure. It's a massive market, so there's going to be other options. Um, but if you think about it through that lens, the market is evergreen. It's
Yeah,
absolutely
yeah.
huge, and we like to comp it to the bottled water industry. In the 70s, there were really two bottled water companies that owned like 85% of the market, and they were Perrier and Evian, and they both happened to be French, which is
Really?
ironic.
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
And then from there, how many bottle you can go to Whole Foods, there's probably 100 brands of bottled water on the
Yeah, yeah.
shelf, right? And it's water. Like it's like there's like think about
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
it is the same thing essentially, but how many brands are in this generic space? Thousands,
Literally,
thousands.
yeah.
So we look at it like that. Like there could be 100 filtering shower brands in the world over the next 10 years, but everybody will have one. And that is sort of the key. And that's our belief. So the water is not going to be getting better in the US nor anywhere else in the world. Everybody's going to need to be
That's probably true,
filtering
yeah.
their shower water and drinking water and bath water and, you know, wash, where they wash their face. So we're riding into that market that we're sort of the, front runner of.
And so that naturally brings up the question of like, okay, like if there's gonna be all this competition, like how do you differentiate and like what's the moat of the business here? Because I mean I've seen a number of sort of
I'm gonna go.
lookalikes.
I'm gonna go back to the water. What's the differentiator of water?
Um, I don't know. Some of them have like freaking like pH neutral stuff.
Okay, sure, yeah, great. That's not no anybody can recreate that. It's not a moat. None of that's
Yeah, yeah,
proprietary.
yeah.
Flavor, like I think the best water guy in the game right now ran a blind taste test of waters, and nobody could tell the
Who
difference.
is that?
um Kill your thirst,
Oh, oh.
and like that's his point. He's like branding matters. The moat is the brand, and I'm a brand guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We
Well, I
believe
so I
Jolie.
agree with that, by the way.
Yeah,
I think there is no
but
moat in consumer
the
except for
the
brand.
market might not. When I say the market, I mean like the capital market, investors, they have a really hard time valuing brand, and like how do they
Yeah,
quantify brand. And I understand that it is hard to do. Because there's no formula that you could sort of plug into and go, here's your brand number.
right.
There's different brand equity tools, but when you're an investor, it's hard to sort of say, as opposed to, oh, we have a proprietary X, we could defend in court.
Right,
They
right,
would put
right.
more value in something like that than they do in
Even if it was less
brand.
true, just because it sounds more logical. Because like
Yeah,
brand is such a it's I mean, you can measure it in like you can pay whoever you want to like measure your brand for you for like a bunch of, but like,
yeah,
uh
100 grand, you could get a
yeah, yeah.
test.
For
Yeah.
100 grand, I'll tell you exactly how good your brand is. So, yeah, I will certainly do that. But like, I think it's hard to comprehend. And I'm like a finance guy, and like I ran a beauty brand, and like I would pitch these investors, and I would try to explain this to them. But I do think, yeah, I had a guy named Evan Zhao on the pod a couple weeks ago. I don't know if you know Evan, but he sold. He's like a scientist by trade, and he sold his business to Oddity for about $80 million. It was a skincare business, and they spent like I don't know, like some crazy, I don't remember exactly, some crazy amount of money on R&D. They like created like a new molecule or whatever. And then Oddity comes along, which is a publicly traded multi-billion-dollar beauty conglomerate. Well, I shouldn't say conglomerate. They only have a couple brands, but and pays him 80 million bucks for it. And I asked Evan, I was like, "What do you like? How important do you think IP is in consumer?" And you would think a guy like that would be like, "Well, IP is everything." And he was like, "No, it doesn't matter like really at all. The only thing that matters is brand." So I'm on the same page, and I guess the my question would just be then like what elements are you focused on as like these copycats enter the market? Like we can say brand is the moat, but like what does that actually mean? Like is it just like maintaining the allure of Jolie from from a price perspective, or like what kinds of things do you think about when you're thinking about building the brand and keeping the brand?
well, it gets back to that sort of word of mouth idea, which we own, right? We were the most Googled shower head in the world in 2023.
Hmm.
Um, and if Kohler is sort of the oldest player in the plumbing space 150 years old, about $8 billion a year in revenue,
Are they
and
public?
like they're not. They're still family owned.
Wow.
But like, you would think that everybody would know that whether they had a cola or not, and they don't. And like nobody
Yeah.
Googles them,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like so they have zero brand equity in a very, very big market where Jolie has all the brand equity. People talk about Jolie in that way, and part of the reason we named it the way, it happens to be my wife's name, but it's a name that you sort of it has a double entendre, so it means pretty in French. So the Jolie Skin Company translates to the Pretty Skin Company.
Hmm.
It's familiar. You talk about it like
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
person. And we, as a brand guy, we wanted it, we wanted people to talk about this brand with love and, affection, literally. And they
Mhm.
do, right? I love my Jolie. It's like we hear it all the time. So the brand, how do we maintain that position? If we keep satisfying customers, we will continue to be the number one brand in the space. That is what I believe. We do that in lots of ways. It's certainly not through paid marketing. That provides zero brand equity.
Zero.
It's certainly not through paid marketing. That provides zero brand equity.
Zero.
It's zero.
Zero.
That's sort of like a, a lever, but it's not how people get excited about the brand. I just think about the non-data data. We've sold over 600,000 Jolies in less than 4 years with the best retention in consumable
Hmm.
in history, as far as we can tell. And that's a metric I care about. If we keep doing that, our brand equity will continue to rise. Um, we have a sub 5% return rate for 4 years in a row. That's I don't need an NPS for.
For $160 or $50 product or whatever too, like that's pretty exceptional.
Yeah.
But-
Again, like I don't need a data point NPS
Right,
score
right,
to
right.
tell me if my customers are happy or not. Their actions of not churning and not returning the product are the best indicators of their happiness. The other it is just venture like metric for some quant to sort of feel better about how they
Right.
analyze the business.
How how do you think about, because I believe unless something has changed, you guys are primarily D2C. Is that still true?
Yeah, we think of Amazon as part of D2C. I think it's unwise to separate those two if you think like just from a straight marketing performance
Yes.
bucket,
Yes.
because Amazon is getting so much of the benefit of all the marketing that's being spent.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You can't separate it is what
I
I would
remember
advise people.
I I
Yeah.
remember fighting with people about that in like 2021 or 2022.
Yeah.
And like I'm glad I think by now everybody's kind of on the same page as that.
They're not. The industry is, I would say, going that way, but they should be there. And the point is like, again, like if you're venture backed, and this isn't about if you have capital behind you, they're gonna want these neat little boxes to sort of
Yeah.
like look for like value, like where did we spend and what did it do? And they need it to sort of sit in these nice little buckets.
Yeah.
It's a
It's not how it
messy
works. Yeah,
world.
yeah, yeah.
Attribution is the great white whale of paid marketing. It is unknown. Full
Unknown,
stop.
unknown. This is like people whenever I don't do like a ton of sales calls anymore, but like people will ask me like, "Oh, well like how do you decide how much Facebook spend goes on like the Amazon P&L for your Iris account?" And I'm like, "Dude, shut up. Like that's not that's like anybody who tells you that anybody who wants you to believe that they can give you that number is literally just lying to you."
My guess is you're generating more inbound calls from your content that you're creating, although you can't measure that in the way that people want you to.
Yeah.
And you do some paid, and that's working as well as it could because you have all this great content.
Right.
Okay, that's the game for all of us, right? So our content is also word of mouth, and we have 50,000 pieces of UGC. That is
Jesus.
a volume. Yeah, yeah, it's a crazy number, right? So if you discover us because you're somebody you follow, whether you know them personally or not,
Yeah, yeah.
and then you're retargeted. Like this part of the funnel works for us efficiently because this part of the funnel exists. This part is more valuable than this part. We couldn't prospect our way into profitable growth through paid channels alone, full
Not
stop.
yeah,
Nor can anybody, in my opinion.
not in a profitable
Um,
growth. Yeah. I think that's the key.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I think that like spending money and driving growth is just literally a function of capital. Money in, maybe some money back. That's growth. It's not good growth, but
Right.
that's
But
growth.
you can, yeah, I mean, you can buy revenue.
Yeah, it's very
Yeah,
simple.
it gets expensive.
But if you want to survive and be sustainable and self-sufficient and truly profitable, not like magic math adjusted EBITDA
Community
numbers. I mean,
adjusted
like
EBITDA,
real
yeah.
money at the end of the year. They'd be like, yep, that's how much money's in the bank account. That's how we operate. That's how we think.
So I want to bring back to my. So I was gonna ask, when we think about sort of like we're on the topic right now of maintaining the brand. Like, is there any strategy around like channel mix for that? Then, like, would you do like I don't know. I don't think you do like Sephora or Ulta or something like that. But like, is there any reason?
Sorry, I didn't fully. So the majority of the business is D2C, but we are in Ulta. We're
Oh,
in
you do Ulta?
350
Is
doors.
that
Yeah.
new?
Yep. Relatively new. Yeah, it's new this year, and we tested it in January and went like broader in August. So not that many months ago.
Yeah.
There's some announcements that I can't tell you now, but we're going into another big retailer. Uh,
Okay.
so retail Erewhon has been our number one retailer from the beginning. Like
Oh,
we've been
really?
with them
Interesting.
almost from the start. We're top selling beauty product at Erewhon. Now, Erewhon is a relatively small footprint, right? It's California only. I think they have 11 or 12 stores now,
Yeah.
but their output for their stores are
It's crazy. Yeah. It's
absolutely
literally
world
crazy. Yeah.
class.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we did a smoothie with them in April
A
and
Jolie
sold
smoothie.
15. Dude, we did. Yeah, it was called the Fountain of Youth. It was excellent. It was really, really well done. It was, about it was all our lens is always water. So this was about sort of like hydration.
Oh.
It tasted delicious. It looked beautiful, but they sold 15,000 units in 30 days. Like that, I just like 10 stores. Like
It's so dumb.
their volume is insane. So the point I'm making is we'll continue to diversify our distribution. The bigger part of that is we're in 7,000 hair salons. So we're sold in
Yeah.
7,000 pro hair salons. And that channel is very, very big. Obviously, the biggest footprint in terms of door count, and growing. And, that's how you build a well balanced business, in my opinion.
Well, we can just double click on that because I happen to know, and this is like we're gonna crawl into like the deeper corners of the beauty niche, but like you've got a woman named Larissa who is doing that for you, who did it for Olaplex, I believe, right? Right? She still works, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
and that was how Olaplex, like that's like Olaplex's like big kind of. I mean, they've struggled recently, but like on their come up, like it was the
They're
protein.
still a billion-dollar company. I mean, I
I
think they're valued at over $1 billion, right?
Around there.
Close.
The stock price
Okay.
had underperformed. Let's put it that
Yeah,
way.
100%. But they still generate hundreds of millions in revenue. But
Oh, for
I
sure,
understand
for
your
sure.
point.
Yeah, yeah. But
Yeah.
so my point is just like that can be an extraordinary channel. Not only from a brand equity perspective, but also from a profitability perspective, because like you are like meeting people. Like this is true for like I think like Quip did a good job of it at dentist offices. I always thought there was a huge opportunity for Mad Rabbit at tattoo parlors, Olaplex at hair salons. Like when you catch somebody at that literal point of, I need this solution. I think like there's a huge attach rate, first of all. But then also you get the sort of secondary brand benefits. So I want to loop that back, all of this kind of back to the idea of positioning, maintaining the position of Jolie in the market as the leader. You mentioned like the UGC stuff, which is interesting. So all of that like might work a little bit hand in hand too, right? Like if you do the Fountain of Youth smoothie, which like I don't know how do I get Ray? I need you to get us an iris smoothie at Erewhon next month. Like you do that kind of stuff, and then like it gets shared, and people talk about the brand, and so that feeds into the UGC, but then that feeds into the word of mouth. So it's all kind of one funnel. Is that like the right way to think about it, or do you separate
I
it out a
mean,
little bit
yeah,
maybe.
I mean, it's not one funnel, but it's one message, right? You sort of want people to discover you in their life, right? So
Yeah.
if you're only discovering a brand through your social feed, that brand is going to struggle to ultimately make money.
Yeah,
I just don't know a lot of them that have. But when you become part of the social fabric and you're part of a conversation that's well beyond your digital ad footprint, which is a necessity to be a successful brand, in my opinion, that's when you can really do some amazing things. And, if you, whether that means opening your own retail, being in the right retail, creating content with people that are socially relevant,
Mhm.
um, culturally relevant, like we do a lot of things in culture, let's just call it food and art, where
Okay.
we're there, we're just there in a
Like
way
what?
that's
Give me an
like
example.
so. Our launch party, pre-launch, like before we actually launched in the summer or in the fall, like 3 months before we launched, we had an oysters and wine event. Oysters are a natural water filter. One oyster can filter 50 gallons of water per day.
Yeah.
So the connection between like water filter,
You make
we
that, like,
love
known at the
food.
party? Like, are there, like,
We
signs or
did.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, we did. And we created, we've been doing this oysters and wine thing now to this day. We do them a few times a year.
I didn't get invited.
Um, you don't live in New York. We do them in the Hamptons in the summer. Like we use this lever of like food and water as
Yeah.
a meeting environment. We didn't even show a Jolie at that first event. We just talked about what we're doing, what our view is on the beauty and wellness space, how we see the market evolving, and then had this great experience. That experience is still used to this day. We do lots of interview series on our site. If you go to like, Water and Series is on our website. Like we interview people. We do a Proustian like interview
Okay.
series where we're just asking people like, what does water mean to you, right? Because water is this sort of incredible. As a marketer, I think water is the most elastic platform you can think of. We use water for like hydration, sport, pleasure,
Yeah, yeah.
travel. Like
People need water, yeah.
but it
I
fits
agree.
into it's obviously the most critical thing
Yeah, yeah.
for humans, right?
I
But
love
it
water.
fits into your life in different ways. Water can be destructive, hurricane. Sadly, right now, the one that's going on in
Yeah, it's like the
in
fabric
Jamaica, and
of the world almost.
but but it can also be like on the polar end of that, it can be the most calming thing in the world, right? So
Mhm.
water is this amazing platform to tell stories through. And that is we just happen to be lucky that we filter water for your beauty wellness, right? This is a marketer's dream. Staying relevant is how you build a brand. And that means we're going to leverage at some point we're going to have a thing with Olaplex, which we've partnered with. At
Yeah.
some point, we're going to have a partnership with the woman from, the Mormon Housewives, which we did last month.
Hmm.
The next one is coming in November, where you'll see a bunch of partnerships with women that are very well known in the space for whatever their specialty is. And we'll continue to sort of leverage those types of partnerships. Is that one funnel? No, but I get what you're saying. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
we
yeah.
just want people to talk about Jolie at their dinner party, hanging out with their friends, at their office, or online. Like we just want people talking about Jolie in a positive way wherever they are. Many of those channels not measurable. Many of them.
Well, that's so
As a matter of
that's
fact,
what I
the
was
most
gonna
valuable ones are not
yeah.
measurable.
That's what I wanted to ask next, which is like, I mean, maybe you can't measure the impact of it, but are you measuring the output? I mean, it sounds to me like a lot of just like organic content, which I can appreciate. But like, are you saying like we need to do 5 interviews a month and 2 posts or like, do you even boil
Yeah,
it down?
yes, we do, but I'd be lying to you if it was as formulaic as we would like it to be. I would
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it to be like, oh yeah, 10 plus 4 plus 7 equals 70, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Like if we do these things, then here's what happens. It's not that clean. It's just we need to be present. We need to be showing up. What does that look like? Is two a week enough? Is two a
Mhm.
month enough? No, let's up it to four, right? Like whatever those things are, we start to dial in the frequency. But ultimately, I would challenge every brand and say, hey, look, you have $100,000 a month marketing budget. It drives you 500,000 visits to your website every month. Figure out a way to replicate that a different way. How do you drive 500,000 visits to your site without
Yeah.
spending
Not paid.
$100,000 paid? And then you'll start to see a different performance.
Mhm.
You'll start to see, my guess is, improved performance. It might take months for your conversion rate to go up, your add to cart rate to go up. You're like, those are the numbers that people are going to be watching, and your CAC to come down. That's sort of the holy grail of all of it. Lower the CAC, the better the business.
Yeah, yeah. And how
Uh, but but that's how we think about it.
so how much do you wanna spend on, like, pay I mean, and it's different probably now than it was at the beginning because you didn't spend anything on paid, and that's kinda how the brand was born. But, like, do you have a framework for now, like, sort of call it at scale? Like, how you think about how much money you want to invest into brand versus, like, performance? Or some people somebody told me the other day that brand and performance, um, that he rejected the premise that there was this idea of brand versus performance, which I disagree with, but if you agree with it, then
I
like
don't I don't I don't agree with that because, performance is TikTok, Meta,
right.
Google, like those are channels, and brand is not those
Okay, great.
channels.
So great. So we agree. So how do you think about resources or budget invested into performance versus some of this more brand centric initiatives that you're
So
talking about?
consistently every year, including this one, we have not been able to spend our budget that was allotted for the year on performance marketing
Hmm.
efficiently. Now
Yeah, yeah.
remember, we're like maniacal about our CAC number, which is first purchase profit.
Yep.
That's our target. That's how we operate the business. That's it. That's it.
Mhm.
We have not been able to spend our budget on paid performance every single year since we started, which means we make more money because we don't just waste it,
Right.
but our budget next year has grown to a place where, like, hey, we can't just like, we have to figure out other ways to try and deploy some of this budget because we
Yeah,
know
yeah.
we might get to like 60% of it we get to actually spend efficiently, and then we're going to have all this other money. What are we going to do with it? Brand. We're going to be leaning much more into brand than we have, and we're pretty brand, we invest quite a
Yeah,
lot
yeah.
in brand, but now it's going to be another level. We don't, I wouldn't say we have a sort of a split per se.
Okay.
And by the way, the other part of that is I've allowed our paid team to have no budget. What's our budget? It's unlimited. You have a one metric to worry about. If you can drive this CAC or lower,
Yeah. Spend
you
as
could
much as you want.
spend
Yeah,
$5
yeah.
million a day. I don't
Yeah.
care. Great. That would mean we're a billion
Unfortunately,
dollar
yeah,
company.
yeah.
Nobody in the history of Jolie or any other business I've ever been involved in has ever been able to meet that goal.
Right.
Spending the money is easy. Spending it efficiently, it caps out so fast your brain would spin, right? So
Yeah.
we stick to that, and we don't move from that.
Before we run out of time here, I want to talk a little bit about the team structure, which I think is pretty interesting. So like I'll mention, I'll go back to my bucket analogy. So like one of the key characteristics of like building your bucket, is that it can't be too heavy because otherwise you can't really pick it up and wave it around, and get your dollar bills. I don't know that I A, know how or B, would build a business with as few people as you have. Um, so talk us through because like I don't know if you've changed. Like I know Create. He originally started out saying like we only need 5 people or whatever, and he's kind of since changed his tune on that. But I don't believe that's changed for you guys. So walk me through a little bit about how you consider like building out the team and like what you do need and what you don't need. What kind of like tools are like is AI like really making that big of a difference in your business that you don't need extra people, or maybe let's just pull on this thread a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, like, as we record this today, Amazon announced, like, they're letting go 30,000 people, right? And,
Yeah.
our approach has been this way from the beginning. I wanted to sort of build a business with the fewest amount of full-time people as I could, not because I don't like people, but because like they create the bigger the business gets with people, the more challenging that business comes. It's just like a different animal. And
It's so true, yeah.
not only did I think it could be done, I wanted to do it I just thought it made better sense. So we're 5 full-time people today. We have lots of independent
Of course.
contractors or fractional people,
Yeah.
but I do believe this is how businesses are built today because, the world shifted their investment needs where profit became a priority for many investors to even look at you. Not that that was our reason, but
Mhm.
like if you're trying to go out and build something and raise money in the consumer space, you're going to have to be able to show that you can be profitable or are profitable.
Yeah.
That's probably, headcount is going to be one of those areas that you can leverage. With all of the AI that has continued to come, and we use Iris and have been using Iris and a bunch of other tools that
Shout
allow
out.
us to get shout out to Iris, to be more efficient and allow our team to get way more productive. I just think that makes perfect sense. I believe we will get well past $100 million. We'll do about 50 million this year, but but call it in the next 24 months,
Yeah.
100 million. We'll do that with way less than 10 people.
Do you believe in the one-person billion-dollar company at any point?
Look, I mean, sure. Is it possible? Sure. I'm not even trying to do anything like that though,
I
right? Like,
This is,
I'm
like,
just like,
separate, so just separately, like, 'cause
yeah,
if
yeah. I think it's possible. I think it's so unlikely that somebody will do it and then a bunch of other people will try and do it, and most of those will fail.
Yeah,
But there'll be this one person that has done it, right? And
yeah.
I'm not sure that should be the goal. Like,
Yeah,
I don't
I
know
just
what,
I want
yeah.
it's funny because like, that I mean, I think it's possible in consumer is probably the only place, e-commerce specifically is probably the only place that I could ever imagine it. Because even like a software company, like, no shot. Like even like a retail company, like, no shot. You need like 4 accountants just to like have like an 8-figure retail business. Like there's a lot of
Yeah, well, retail, I mean, I actually think it could happen in software. I don't know why it couldn't. Like, because you can, if AI is doing all your coding and you're building the thing, and you're just the guy that created the agents and the model, like I see that possible. But I have a love-hate relationship with AI. I think it's horrible for society, and I think there's going to be way more negative things that
Oh, really?
happen
Say more about
than,
that.
well, it's destructive to our people, right? Like the human race is bad things have happened from our democracy. Bad things are happening to our society. Bad things are happening to people. Like actual people have killed themselves with the influence of agents. And, it's one of those things that there's bad people in the world and they're going to leverage these amazing tools to do bad things, unfortunately. And that's really sad. It's bad for our humanity. At the same time, there's other opportunities
But
and
it's good
the
for
good
corporate
things.
profits.
It is good for corporate profits, right? And I'm not criticizing corporate America for being corporate. That's what they do.
Yeah, yeah.
It means that people will be out of work. It means that our economy in America, which is 80% consumption, is going to shrink because the upside of AI, it's not going to, it's one of the few technologies, if the only one that I could actually think of, that's not going to create an industry that's going to drive a new industry of new people. Like all these other things with technology over hundreds of years have created
Mhm.
more work for people. AI is one of them that I don't think it will. I just can't. I don't see it, and maybe I'm just not seeing it. But I think it's more jobs will be lost from AI than created, and therefore you're going to have less consumption in America. And a lot of the jobs that it's going to take away, like the Amazon announcement today, are white collar, six-figure jobs.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the engine of American consumption, right? That top 10%, that's what 50% of our consumption, 10% of the income class,
Yeah.
50% of all the consumption. If you start to take away that, which we are, and AI is definitely doing that, I just don't see that being a good outcome. But like, so I'm super worried about that. Does it make me a hypocrite then because I'm going to leverage
Yeah,
the
I was
tools of
gonna
my
say,
own
yeah.
business? It may, and I'm sure I'll get a bunch of hate mail from like this. I have to be competitive and I have to build a business that's
Yeah, yeah.
profitable, and that's the job of of this. Um, but yeah, I think it's certainly a disruptive technology.
I go back and forth on it. Like I think, people have said every time something happens, everyone says like there's gonna be huge job loss and we're all screwed, and then like it ends up not being true. I agree with you in some respects that like this one is, I think, quite a bit different. Like this is not like the ATM or whatever, is like the big one where people were like, oh, like there's not gonna be any banking, and it's like, well, there's there's a difference between like a box of plastic that can like dispense money and like agentic like intelligence that like could literally like do your job better than you. Uh
Well, and that's it. But that's just it, right? So if it can do your job better than you, why would you hire somebody that can not do the job as well, right? It's a simple operational question. And uh, marketing is going to be leveled. Like the paid marketing is like on its last breath. I don't know how many people in America are making a living off of paid marketing,
a
but
lot.
it will, is it a million people? I don't know. But like whatever it is going to be cut in half by the end of next year. Like, think about that. That's my prediction. I feel like Scott Galloway, like I'm like reading but
Well,
like
I think
because and we're using one right now. Like we're using a marketing AI tool that's beating our humans. So
really
like,
that's crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
And like at some point, like Facebook and Google presumably will just like build like native or buy like native tools. Like have you ever used like there's like certain like like there's been like automated media buying tools forever.
sure.
Um and I used them pretty extensively while we were running Mad Rabbit, and we would you have to check them quite a bit. But if you have like a media buying, I think is like sort of the first one to die, and then maybe it's like, I don't know, copywriting. Like I think AI slop and copywriting is like pretty tough. I
Yeah,
don't know.
but this is where like I think that the AI generated stuff is really interesting. It's cool. It's like, oh wow, look at that. That's cool what it's able to
Yeah,
do. You can still tell it's fake, and
that's
that's
what I'm saying.
okay. It doesn't. But it's like, is it going to be more effective, right? Like, is it good for us if all like we have done it. We've created AI generated ads, run them on Meta, fully generated by AI. Like, come up with an idea, spin it up. It's cool. But
Yeah,
then you go, did it work better? Some of them actually did work better, right? Like much better. Like this ad worked better than the ones we spent a lot of time trying to create.
yeah.
Okay, if then you go, yeah, but is it good for like society? If all ads are just generated by AI, it probably isn't going to be a great outcome for our species. It just won't. You're living in this like digital loop that
Literally, we're
is
like, yeah,
pretty
you almost
terrifying.
Sam Altman. We're totally like straying here, but like he basically, I don't know if you saw this, but somebody asked him like, how do you? I think it might have been about the like the bunnies on the trampoline thing. Did you see that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Sam Altman's sort of like way to address that was something along the lines of like, well, people have used Photoshop forever, and like nobody questions like the validity or like reality of like a Photoshop altered image. And so he argues that there's just like a spectrum of it all, which I think is like total cope from the standpoint of like it is like literally made up.
Yeah,
And
but it's he I would argue on his side actually. I would like we've been using CGI in movies for decades. The fashion industry has been lying
true.
to the consumer since the beginning of fashion. So like a Vogue cover shoot, it's now known that all of that was airbrushed and pinned and like everything was made to look perfect, but it's now known, but up until like the early like 2000, nobody knew what the cover really was. It was
What
a
it actually,
photograph, and then an artist was like, and like shaped the whole thing, like to basically look perfect. That's fake. They didn't even tell you. So I think the spectrum is
Mhm.
true. Like there's going to be the spectrum, and the disclosure is really critical. Some brands are going to try to pass off AI generated people as real people.
Right.
That's bad. The ones that say this is an AI generated image, I think that's the responsible thing to do. And then you could decide I hate it or I love it, but at
Yeah,
least
yeah.
you are informed that it's not real. Because if you think it's real and everything seems real, it's like we know what happens when people look at Instagram and they think everybody flies private. Like it's just like that's not
Well, that's what I'm
real.
saying. That's what I'm saying. It's like the difference between like what you're describing though, in terms of like the cover of Vogue versus like something I can post on my Instagram story. Like I could make up, like
Well,
it's the sheer
well, that's
volume.
technology, right? Because it's that pervasive. It used to be only for the industry, and now it's
Right.
literally a 12-year-old could create whatever.
Yeah, that's kind of scary to think about.
That's why I'm worried about humanity
And why you live in London.
and why I live in
Or
London.
partially why you live in London. Yeah.
Mostly. I mean, there's a lot of things that are wrong here, but they have a lot of things right that, America's in a weird spot, but I'll just
That's
hopefully we
that's a
figure it
different
out.
podcast topic. Yeah.
That's a very different podcast and one which I'm not doing.
All right, Ryan. I think we'll call it here. Before I let you go, anything else you want to mention to the audience here? Anywhere to find you on socials? Anything you want to plug? I'll give the mic over to you for a second here.
No, I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity here. I'm not going to plug my own sort of social footprint, but maybe at the end of this, like you can share that if people are interested, because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
do my LinkedIn posts are like meant to be helpful for some people.
yeah. Follow Ryan on LinkedIn. Just Ryan. Am I saying Babenzien correct?
It's Babenzien, but yeah, it's okay. It's all
Why
right.
did I think Babenzien? I should know
I
that by
don't
now.
know.
Anyways,
Ryan Babenzien is
Ryan
my
Babenzien.
LinkedIn, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it.
All right, Ryan. Thanks so much for joining me again, man. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Drew.
All right.